Number 10. The Busby Stoop Chair. Yeah, we're kicking this haunted list off with a chair. It's pretty spooky. Let's do it. The Busby Stoop Chair comes from 1702, 10 years after the Salem witch trials, so take this one with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? People made odd choices back then. Women were witches and chairs were evil. Welcome to 1702, folks. Englishman Thomas Bubsy had some issues with his father-in-law, and he didn't handle them too well, so now he has to be, hanged for it. Yeah, you can't just kill people for no reason, Thomas. What is this, 1692? He was hanged near the Humble Inn. Ironic. But a chair that was nearby is now said to hold the spirit of one Thomas Busby. If you sit on this chair, you are set to die in a frightful accident. So the chair was declared haunted, but did anything actually happen? Honestly, yeah, kind of. Locals say that during World War II, airmen from a nearby base came to the pub, the inn rather, and those who sat on it never returned. In the 70s, more accidents were connected, but they still kept the chair around until 1978. It stayed in the inn for that long, until it was donated to the Thirsk Museum. Honestly, it's not even a rocking chair. It looks like it should be a rocking chair, but it's not a rocking chair. That's the scariest part if you ask me. Number 9. The hands resist him. I listed off some dark paintings not too long ago, but somehow I forgot the hands resisting him. Painter Bill Stoneham created this work of art back in 1972. It's most famously belonged to actor John Marley from The Godfather. He's the guy who wakes up with the horse's head in his bed, in case you have seen that movie. So that actor got this painting at one point, but later it was found on eBay with claims that it was cursed from an anonymous previous seller. And the painting was found abandoned in an alley behind a brewery, so that sounds pretty promising. Almost immediately, the new owner of the painting, the family, their daughter claimed to have seen people in the painting move. Yeah, on top of that, apparently the figures would leave the painting and mess up the house. I mean, as far as excuses go, that's not bad for a messy house. Oh, I cleaned up earlier, but those damn paintings. Oh. Number 8, cursed phone number. The song 8675309 has been stuck in my head for about 18 years now. That song is a banger, honestly, great jingle too. If a pizza place had thought of that jingle at first, would have been game over if you ask me. A cursed phone number, is there such a thing? Apparently, yes. 359-888, and then a bunch of 8s afterwards. I don't want to say it out loud, you know? So what's the deal here? Well, anybody who's had this phone number in the last 20 years or so has met their fate almost immediately after. CEO of a Bulgarian phone company, cancer at 48, that's how he passed away. 2 criminals later on, both a little more mysterious than cancer, they both passed away afterwards. All these deaths happened within 4 years. That's the cursed aspect of it all. The phone number was suspended, so nobody is able to use it now. In case you're thinking about it, don't do it. Maybe it's because of this curse, or maybe it has ties to crime. Either way, 8675309 is still stuck in my head. I'm gonna go down with that song right as soon as we're done here.
Coming in at number 7, tombstones. When it comes to items involved in a satanic ritual, I am sure that the Warrens managed to corner that market. I mean, are there other haunted museums? Absolutely, but theirs is really the one that started it all. One of these allegedly satanically involved items you can find hiding about are a series of tombstones that the Warrens claim were used in a dark occult ritual by those who work on the darker side of the paranormal. However, what makes these tombstones especially creepy is that they reportedly belong to rather young people. And so the Warrens had reason to believe that the young people were not only used as a sacrifice, but then their tombstones were used to finalize the ritual. So, just all around very dark and evil stuff. Coming in at number 6, a brick. It's not all Hollywood-based sensations inside the museum. In fact, one of their most prized and feared possessions looks about as plain as you could imagine. It's a brick, like from a house. But of course, this is no ordinary brick. It's in an occult museum after all. This brick in particular was from the Borley Rectory, a now famous building that was demolished in 1944 after it was badly damaged in a fire. But what made it such a sensation was that prior to the 1939 fire, it had long been rumored to be the most haunted building in all of the United Kingdom, which is a pretty tall order considering how many allegedly haunted buildings span across the UK. Allegedly, the night of the fire, there were over 2,000 reports of paranormal activity, including floating bricks thought to have been possessed by a poltergeist. So, if rumors are true, that would make this brick probably the most terrifying brick ever. Which, I mean, I don't know how much competition it really has there, but still, it's a demonic brick. It's terrifying no matter what. Coming in at number 5, pearls of death. While it's probably a pretty safe blanket rule that you shouldn't go around touching much of anything you find in Ed and Lorraine's demonic collection, some stuff is probably a little worse than others, and this next one falls into the latter category. Notoriously one of the most dangerous items found inside the museum, the Pearls of Death is a cursed necklace said to do exactly as the name suggests. Allegedly, anyone who dares place them around their neck will be choked and suffocated to death. Now, my question about this necklace is it like a Frodo and the Ring style situation where it will call to you, slowly infecting your brain through mind control until it practically forces you to place it around your neck? Or does it just wait for someone to unknowingly do it before it unleashes all hell on the victim? I guess I will never know, because you can bet I won't be testing it out for myself. Coming in at number 4, the Conjuring Mirror. Despite what the name would have you believe, the Conjuring Mirror actually has really nothing to do with the Conjuring movies. Instead, this haunted mirror gets its name from the fact that it was, at one point, allegedly used to summon or conjure spirits. Once in the possession of a man named Stephen Zellner, legend has it that Stephen practiced a kind of witchcraft known as catoprotromancy, I probably butchered that, in order to see into the future and seek out revenge on his enemies. However, the more that Stephen used the mirror, the more and more corrupt he and his use of the magic became. Eventually, it's said the evil spirits he had conjured to do his bidding became too powerful to control and turned on the very person who had summoned them. Soon, Stephen began fearing for his life, so as a last resort, he decided to reach out to a local priest to see if the evil spirits could be exorcised from the home. But instead, the priest put him in touch with Ed and Lorraine. Upon their arrival at Stephen's home, they immediately knew Stephen was in grave trouble. And so to keep him safe, they performed a reverse incantation spell to seal up all the spirits back inside the mirror from which they had been conjured. Afterwards, Stephen begged them to take the mirror away from him, and that is how it came to live in Ed and Lorraine's museum. However, don't get too comfortable. Despite the spell they cast, Ed and Lorraine still claim to have experienced many terrifying moments with the spirits they angered from trapping inside this mirror. And who knows what could bring them back out. Coming in at number 3, the Shadow Doll. When it comes to creepy dolls, I'll be honest, it doesn't take much to freak me out. But with that being said, there is definitely a very good reason why the Shadow Doll is one of the most feared possessions in the entire museum. Now, what starts off this seemingly endless list of creepy things about this doll is that there is no definitive answer as to why it was created or who created it. But according to Ed and Lorraine's files, it was made using both human and animal bones and was absolutely used in satanic rituals. So it is definitely possessed by some less than ideal company. Said to have been found in an antique shop by a couple, they began to think something was wrong after they kept waking up night after night covered in inexplicable scratches. But it wasn't until the doll began showing up in their nightmares, telling them that she was going to kill them, that they decided to get rid of the terrifying toy. And good thing they did too. Legend has it that if someone takes a picture of this doll, she will visit you in your dreams and kill you in your sleep. Just one more reason to never trust a creepy doll. Coming in at number 2, a satanic idol. As the story goes, in 1991, a hunter was walking through the woods on the lookout for deer when he began to feel an overwhelming sense of paranoia, like he was being watched or something. At that very moment, he turned around to see this creepy doll leaned up against a tree, staring at him, and he could have sworn that it appeared out of nowhere. Immediately, the hunter knew he should not be here, and so he began walking as quickly as he could to find a way out of the forest. Then, suddenly, an old man dressed in all black robes appeared beside him. He looked like a priest, the hunter thought, but something wasn't quite right. Every step he took, the priest matched him, and eventually he became so freaked out, he actually debated shooting at the priest with his arrow to scare him off. But instead, he decided to ask the priest how to get out of the forest. But creepily, the priest did not speak. Instead, he pointed off into another direction, turned around, and left the man alone once again. Now, luckily, the hunter escaped, and the following day, after telling his friends the strange events, they suggested that he reach out to Ed and Lorraine. Upon telling them his story, they explained that the priest was a well-known leader of a satanic cult, and that the creepy doll he had encountered was actually an idol used for ritual purposes. However, the Warrens, being who they were, wanted to get this idol for the museum, and so Ed ventured into the forest, found the doll, and brought it back home. Soon after, however, strange things began happening. Allegedly, one time Ed was speaking with Lorraine, turned away for a second, looked back, and she was suddenly 30 feet away and passed out on the ground. He called the ambulance, and she spent the next 3 days in hospital in and out of consciousness. And according to Ed, she actually levitated while in the hospital. The Warrens always firmly believed that the satanic priest was working through the doll Ed had taken from the forest and was trying to punish them for taking it. Let's just hope no one was ever hospitalized after that. And last up in our number 1 spot, Annabelle. You didn't really think I was gonna do a list about haunted things found in Ed and Lorraine's museum and not bring up the famous Annabelle, did you? Although nowadays she is locked up tight, this wasn't always the case. Back in 1970, Annabelle was gifted to a nursing student named Donna. But it didn't take long before Donna and her roommate Angie knew that something was off. After about a month, the roommates began finding disturbing messages lying around their apartment, warning them to help Lou. Lou was one of their friends who had apparently warned the girls of the doll since day 1. Eventually, things got so creepy that the woman contacted a medium who told them not to be afraid, that the doll was merely possessed by a young girl named Annabelle Higgins who had died on the property years prior. The medium advised them that Annabelle felt safe here and would like to stay, so they agreed. But that was all a part of the demon's plan. Not long after, Lou stayed over, and when he awoke from a nightmare, he found he couldn't move his body. And then, like straight out of a horror movie, he says Annabelle walked up his body and strangled him until he passed out. After that, the girls contacted a priest who put them in touch with paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who discredited the medium and said it was, in fact, a very dangerous demon possessing this doll. However, even now, despite being locked up, the doll should be deeply feared. It was reported once that a man who visited the museum mocked the doll and only a few days later died after losing control of his motorbike. So, yeah. She very well could be the most terrifying doll on the planet.
And we're to start things off at number 10 with the Satanic Idol. This item was once housed at the Warren Occult Museum, and according to the Warrens, the idol is about as pleasant as it sounds. Now, regardless of your opinion on these two paranormal investigators, the tale behind this object is pretty entertaining. So, in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, in 1991, a hunter stumbles upon something, a mysterious idol, just chilling in the middle of the woods. Feeling off about the whole thing, the hunter wisely decides to make a quick exit. But as he's walking away, a cloaked figure, an elderly man in black robes, shows up walking beside him. The robed man doesn't say a word, doesn't even glance in the hunter's direction. Just a silent, unsettling presence. Now, fast forward to paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. The hunter reaches out to them, feeling the need for some supernatural expertise. Ed and Lorraine follow the hunter into the woods. Lo and behold, they confirm that the strange object is no ordinary artifact. It's an idol used in satanic rituals. So they decide to bring it back to the occult museum. Within just a couple days, though, things got even weirder. Ed finds Lorraine curled up in a fetal position in their driveway. She's completely unresponsive, and it's baffling even to the doctors who tend to her. Ed claimed it was the work of the cloaked figure, a supposed satanic high priest. According to him, this figure sent a warning message by unleashing some mysterious force upon Lorraine. And at number 9 is the mirror. In this story posted to Reddit by user Coffee and Jesus 1986, she tells of a mirror that seemed to bring misfortune to her family wherever they went. She writes, "We had a mirror. I have no idea where we got it. It was fine before we moved. But when moving from our first apartment, a friend who dropped it and cracked it ended up with prostate cancer. We moved it with the crack still in it and hung it up. Everything went wrong. I had a miscarriage, my husband lost his job, I got sick, we decided to pack up and move. Yet again, everything went wrong. Miscarriage, lost 3 family members, it was horrible. Final place we moved with it, hung it up, ended up being a cockroach motel. And yet again, everything went wrong. It was like bad luck kept following us. Got rid of that blasted mirror and half our roach-infested belongings. No problems, 6 years and counting. I haven't told anyone about that stupid mirror. It was bad luck and nobody can convince me otherwise." Interesting story. As for the mirror having belonged to an evil person, we don't really know that, as she didn't know where they got the mirror, but if you do believe in cursed objects, certainly seems like this mirror falls under that category, and cursed objects are rarely a sign of a friendly original owner. Number 8, the Codex Gigas. The Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible, is a gigantic manuscript believed to have been penned between 1204 and 1230, currently housed in Sweden's National Library since 1768. This ancient book is a hefty compilation of the Old and New Testaments of the Bible, as well as a trove of other knowledge from its time. But what makes it infamous is its association with magic spells and a striking image of the devil, leading to a widespread belief in a curse surrounding the book. According to legend, the Codex Gigas was supposedly written by a monk who found himself facing a death sentence after breaking his vows. In a desperate attempt to save his life, the monk purportedly struck a deal with the devil. The task the monk was to complete was seemingly impossible. He had to transcribe all of human knowledge in a single night. With the devil's assistance, the monk accomplished this Herculean feat. But the cost? His own soul, of course. The demonic portrait featured in the Codex Gigas is said to be the devil's signature, or possibly a tribute to the devil drawn by the monk himself. This book is believed to hold a curse to this very day, with stories circulating the misfortune befalls those who possess or interact with it.
Number 7, the Bassano vase. This vase comes from the 15th century. It made for an excellent wedding gift in Italy, but the night before the big day, the bride sadly lost her life with the vase still in her hands. The family kept it afterwards, of course, but as the vase was passed down the family line, a pattern began to unveil itself. Whomever held possession of the Bassano vase died shortly afterwards. Now, keep in mind, this was the 15th century, so the average lifespan around then was like, I don't know, 30 years old. But after that many deaths in the family, it was packed away for good, just to be safe, or so they thought. The vase showed up again in 1988 alongside a note. The note was pretty to the point. It said, "Beware this vase, it brings death." Whoever found it was probably like, okay. They continued on with the vase, and later it was auctioned for over $2,000, sans note, of course, you don't want to throw that in there. The pharmacist who won the auction, you guessed it, passed away within months. Number 6, Baker's wedding dress. Why is it in so many horror movies that the ghost is always a lady in a white dress? Why are there so many ghosts in nightgowns? What's going on? Why are you all so sleepy? Maybe they're taken out before their wedding night over a vase, or maybe it's this one. Back in 1849 in the small town of Altoona, Pennsylvania, Elias Baker and his wife Hetty lived in the Baker mansion. They had 2 sons and 1 daughter named Anna. Anna had fallen in love with one of her father's employees, another steel worker, but after her father wouldn't allow the relationship to take off, classic, Anna vowed to never marry anybody, and she locked herself away in her room. Now, when her father passed away in 1848, she went to go find her true love again, but he had since settled down with somebody else. So she spent the rest of her days behaving erratically, and her soul still haunts that same wedding dress today, the wedding dress she never ended up using. Not just the dress, the mansion is haunted as well. Guests would report furniture moving around by itself. Honestly, it's not a bad haunting if you ask me. Moving couches? That would be a great help. I have a terrible back, I would love that. Number 5, the Crying Boy painting. Just the name alone, okay, I want nothing to do with this one. Yeah, we're back with another haunted painting. What is this, Hogwarts? Why are so many paintings moving around at night? This English curse kicked off in the 50s. Now, this is a reproduction of Bruno Amadio's The Crying Boy painting, but this painting is apparently responsible for lots of fires. In September 1985, a family's home burnt down, everything was gone, but the painting looked untouched. British tabloid The Sun even published a story on it, which I'm sure helped the situation. It read, "Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy Picture." Now we laugh at beliefs from the Middle Ages and all that, but we're not really much further here, are we? People smoking in every house in the 50s were like, yeah, maybe it was a painting. It was probably that. Number 4, the Hope Diamond. Coming from the 1660s, this curse began when a gem dealer named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier bought this large diamond when visiting India. He bought it, apparently, okay. The origins of the diamond were unknown, but it didn't matter. This beauty was just sitting there and he had to. Well, later on, after Tavernier got the diamond, rumors spread throughout Europe and the United States that Tavernier actually stole the diamond from the statue of a Hindu goddess. The newspapers actually kicked this one off by publishing the Hope Diamond as an ancient curse. The diamond at one point ended up in the hands of King Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. Now, if you don't know about them in history, they lost their lives during the French Revolution. We'll say that. The old guillotine dream team. The stone then went to Lord Francis Hope come 1839, and by that point it was deemed cursed officially. This is when it got the name, the Hope Diamond, right? They ended up selling the diamond shortly after being reduced to poverty. Then Evelyn Walsh McLean bought the stone in 1912. Shortly after, her son was killed in a car accident. So just bad news all around. When the stone was delivered to its final and current home, the Smithsonian, back in 1958, the driver delivering the package was later hit by a truck. He survived, but shortly after, his house caught fire. Moral of the story, you don't need diamonds, for more reasons than one. Number 3, the Anguished Man. Historical paintings are cool, but this is the first time I've read up on the Anguished Man myself. Gotta admit, it's pretty unsettling. Wow. It's considered one of the most haunted objects in the world, and it looks like it too. Definitely I would guess I'd pick it out of the crowd. This oil painting was created by an unknown artist, but the actual paint is mixed with their blood. So their legit DNA is in this painting. Blood, sweat, and tears, literally. Not much is known of the artist as he passed away shortly after, but the current owner is Sean Robinson from Cumbria, England. His grandmother had given him the painting. There wasn't much known beforehand, but his grandmother warned him that it was cursed. Hey, here's some Werther's originals and a cursed painting. Classic grandmas, you know how they do. Sean had to leave it in his basement at first because his wife wasn't a fan. More than fair. But when the basement flooded, which is also mysterious and that sucks, he had to then move it upstairs. After that point, the couple heard crying, screams, whispering all throughout the house, things you don't want to hear alone in a house with a haunted painting. It got so bad, Robinson uploaded time-lapse footage to YouTube in 2011, and it shows the door closing by itself next to the painting. Check it out. Also, yeah, keep this in the basement for sure. I agree with the missus on this one. Number 2, broken mirrors. It doesn't matter who you are, you've heard of this one at some point. You break a mirror and what do you get? Bad luck. You get 7 years of bad luck. Has this happened to you? If so, what year are you on? Are you close? How close are you to the 7-year mark? We got your back. You got this. You're so close. Ancient Romans kicked this one off. They believed that the human soul would renew every 7 years. That's where the whole 7-year thing comes into play. It takes time to repair the human soul, apparently. That combined with the belief that a mirror's reflection was a way into the soul, well, now we have one guy who feels really bad for breaking a mirror, essentially. Therefore, a curse. If you break a mirror, you're tearing the soul from the body and abandoning it. In Kazakhstan, if you break a mirror, evil spirits would haunt the person responsible for the damage. That's a pretty scary deal. You gotta keep those hands grippy. They say you can't look into broken mirror pieces afterwards, or else that's bad luck in itself. There's too many mirrors now, honestly, cut to today. I'm sure ancient Romans had no idea what 2022 would look like. We have phone cases with mirrors in them now. That's a lot of bad luck in jean pockets, my friends. And coming in number 1, Curse of the Billy Goat. Can a team be cursed? Is that such a thing? Here we go. I mean, I live in Toronto, home of the Maple Leafs, and we don't see a lot of wins on that side, but the Chicago Cubs curse, well, that was a huge deal for a very long time. The Chicago Cubs curse comes from 1945, when a man named Bill Sionis, nicknamed Billy Goat, he was kicked out of a Chicago Cubs game. Yeah, he actually didn't even get into game 4 to begin with. Was he too intoxicated? No. Did he bring a live goat with him to this game? Yes, that was why. Yeah, Bill brought with him his pet goat for good luck. So after the staff said, no, you can't enter the 1945 World Series with a live goat, he then cursed the club over and over on the way out. What a guy. Saying the Cubs ain't gonna win no more, over and over again, and that was the game that they dropped the ball, so something kind of happened. The Detroit Tigers won and the curse of the Billy Goat kicked off, and it got so out of hand that come 1994, the Cubs had lost 12 games in a row, their worst home start in history, so Sam Sionis went to Wrigley Field, everybody was chanting to let the goat in, and then the Cubs won 5-2. I don't know. Humans in the 1700s were like, oh, that woman's cursed, she's a witch for sure, and then humans today are like, ah, that stadium's cursed, for sure cursed. We haven't changed, moral of the story, I don't know.
And number 10 is my personal experience. Now, recently I've been living with my grandparents because, you know, rent isn't cheap. But anyways, a few weeks ago my grandfather came home all giddy and happy because he was gifted a brand new Alexa. I mean, it could have been secondhand, after all, he didn't buy it himself, somebody gave it to him. But nevertheless, he wanted me to set it up for him for, you know, obvious reasons, you guys, because you think my grandpa's gonna want to read the instructions and do it himself? Come on, don't be silly. Now, this wouldn't be my first Alexa rodeo, and I inherently don't really trust these things because, I mean, I've written enough of these lists to know that these guys are bad news. Plus, my no-no really only wanted it to play music, and he didn't realize he had to pay for a monthly Amazon Music subscription, and I wasn't keen on sharing my Spotify account with him, so let's just say that we never set the damn thing up, just kept it in the box where it should be. 2 weeks go by. Enter my little brother. He's always been seen by my grandparents as more tech savvy than I am, which to that I am by no means offended. You go on there and you help them out, because frankly, I don't like reading instructions either. Anyways, so Gramps was all, "Oh, como fato conquisto Alexa?" And my brother was all, "Yeah, whatever." That's my little brother impression. His voice is deeper than mine. Don't ask how he did that, because I wish I knew. So anyways, he hooks up this bad boy, sets my no-no up with a free trial to Amazon Music, and before you know it, we're asking to listen to O Sole Mio. But instead of playing the song, the ring turns red, and the thing starts whispering, "Your soul is Mio," over and over again. Now, we thought this could be a glitch and unplugged it, but the light didn't turn off, and the thing just did not stop chanting. Now, seeing as we didn't pay for the damn thing, we just chucked it off the damn balcony and watched it plummet 14 stories. I mean, listen, we did not sign up to trade our very soul for a goddamn voice assistant, especially one with an attitude. Come on, just play the song, then ask to claim my soul. Coming in at number 9 is Pop Goes the Weasel, the story I found on Reddit. Quote, "One day I was humming Pop Goes the Weasel to myself for no particular reason. The boyfriend was in the room, and it eventually got stuck in his head, so he asked Alexa to play it on Spotify. It was being glitchy that day and didn't listen to him. We thought nothing of it and went about our day. So 8 hours later, around 3 a.m., guess what starts playing rather loudly in our small apartment? Pop Goes the Weasel. Now, go ahead and ask it to play on Spotify, and you'll see that this kind of got this creepy, almost sinister version. We shared a bottle of wine that night, and it took us a while to wake up and realize where the noise was coming from. And my boyfriend bravely went up to tell it to shut up. Every time we hear that song now, it brings back a little PTSD. Oi! You liking this video? Prove it. Smack that like button, smack that notification bell, smack that subscribe button, and give me some love down in the comments. At number 8 is my blind mom from this user called Damsel. My mom is blind, so Alexa is very helpful to her. My husband and I got her a Nest thermostat that she controls using Alexa to make things easier for her. Now one night, she was a little bit warm and asked Alexa what the hallway temperature was. No answer. She asked again, "Alexa, what's the hallway temperature?" And Alexa responded with, get this, "When I do not answer, it is because I am playing a game." Now, she just went back to sleep and tried not to think too hard about it.
Next up on the list, we have the cursed phone number. So this is a peculiar story linked to the Belgian phone number 359-888-888-888. This number was active for 10 years before being disconnected. The number passed through the hands of 3 successive owners, and all of them met untimely deaths. The initial owner got cancer, and the subsequent 2 owners both died as a result of gun violence. The streak of untimely deaths actually caused the Bulgarian mobile phone company to suspend the use of the phone number, and that part is much stranger to me than the coincidental deaths. And at number 6 is the cursed car. So either the car in this story was cursed by some malevolent spirit who really wanted to harm whoever was driving it, or the car just wanted to end it. You be the judge after you hear the story. Undead Gorgeous posted this story to Reddit, writing the following. "My mom had a red Camaro. Yes, Christine jokes were made. That was literally cursed. Someone crossed 3 lanes of traffic and hit her while she was driving. She fixes it. Someone else driving the wrong way down a one-way street hits her dead on. She gets it fixed again. Her sister borrows it, parks it outside a 7-Eleven, and garbage truck backs into it, smashes the whole back end. She gets it fixed again. Mind you, this is the 3rd time in 6 months. Driving it home from the shop, someone runs a red light and smashes into the side of it. She gives up and sells it to a friend. The friend takes it into a car wash, the car wash malfunctions, and the whole front end gets crushed / partially impaled by a piece of machinery. Friend wins a lawsuit and scraps the car, ending the cycle. At our number 5 spot is the Doll of Shadows. This is another supposedly cursed cursed item that was housed at the Warren Occult Museum. Unlike a lot of items said to be cursed that look kinda innocuous until you hear the story behind them, this thing doesn't do a great job of hiding the fact that it's evil. The individual who put this thing together didn't have much of a taste for the subtle. It seemed like they were really leaning into the whole evil thing, and you know what? I'm into it. Sure, sometimes less is more, but sometimes more is more. The story begins with two unsuspecting doll collectors who, intrigued by this grotesque creation, acquired it from a dealer at an eerily low cost. Little did they know, they were inviting something malevolent into their lives. On the first night, both collectors woke up with inexplicable scratches on their bodies, but that was just the beginning. The real terror struck on the following night when they shared the exact same nightmare, and they'd awoken up to find even worse scratch marks on their bodies. They turned to the renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren for help. They determined that the doll was a conduit for something more sinister. The doll's malevolence extended beyond the realm of dreams, causing physical harm to those unfortunate enough to cross its path. Ed Warren famously stated that the doll of shadows had been known to stop people's hearts while trapped in the nightmares it conjured. Next up on the list we have the clown doll. In 1966, a man in California stumbled upon a creepy clown doll at a collector's sale. The collector practically forced it into the guy's hands, blabbering about needing to get rid of the thing. It supposedly belonged to a man who had taken the life of his own mother. Why someone would want to bring something like that into their house, regardless of any paranormal beliefs, is beyond me, but I digress. Weird stuff started happening in the guy's place. The doll's eyes seemed to track him, and the air around it just felt off. One night, he could have sworn he heard faint laughter coming from his living room where the doll was displayed. Of course, he was the only one home, and stuff like this just kept happening. He'd find things sitting in places he didn't remember leaving them, and when he had friends over, they would describe having an eerie vibe about the doll as well. Even his dog, usually fearless, refused to go near the thing. Sleep became a luxury as he'd wake up hearing that same slight laughter from the living room. Was it just part of a nightmare? Was there actually something chuckling in his living room in the middle of the night? He didn't want to wait to find out. Enough was enough, and he chucked the thing out with the trash the very next morning. In third place, we have the Myrtles Plantation Cursed Mirror. The Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, is known as one of the most haunted places in the country. Eerie Artifacts is a cursed mirror. As for what went on in this place, well, first off, it was a plantation, so its history is inherently dark, but it was originally owned by Mr. and Mrs. Woodruff, who owned a number of slaves, notably Chloe, who suffered incredibly at the hands of the Woodruffs, more so than the rest, which is saying a lot. In a bid for revenge, Chloe baked a cake laced with oleander leaves, unintentionally causing a lethal dose that led to her hanging. In the grand hallway of the Myrtles Plantation, where an antique mirror still hangs, visitors have reported seeing ghostly reflections of the Woodruff children in its aged glass, and a persistent handprint on the mirror never seems to go away, even after being resilvered multiple times. And at number 2, we have the horrendously awful paintings by one of the most despicable monsters to ever waddle the face of the earth, John Wayne Gacy. If you don't know who John Wayne Gacy is, you're probably new to this channel, first off, but if evil truly does exist, I'll just say this guy was a perfect example. He was sentenced to death for his crimes in 1980, and while on death row, he decided he'd take up a new hobby: painting. A number of his pieces can be found online, but his most well-known work is his Pogo the Clown painting, which is a self-portrait of sorts. When Gacy wasn't committing his disgusting acts, he worked part-time as a clown. I know that there are good, hard-working, decent clowns out there trying to eke out a living, putting smiles on faces, but the whole Gacy thing really doesn't help make clowns seem any less frightening, and neither does this awful painting. And we're finishing off the list with a tale from Reddit once again. I'm going to call The Quilt. The story was posted by Mom Donger, who wrote, "Hijacking my SO story since he doesn't have a Reddit. His mom bought an old quilt at a flea market. It was a nice one, handmade and dirt cheap. She put it in the guest room, which was pretty much the dog's room at that time. They loved to go in there to play, nap, etc. As soon as the quilt was put in there, they stopped going in. They would stand in the doorway and growl and bark, something that's very out of character for both of them. Things would also fly off the shelves. You would put something up and then find it halfway across the room. Sometimes you could hear banging on the walls. One night, they had my SO's grandmother over. She had a bad back, so he gave her his bed since it was a better mattress. He slept in the guest room with the quilt. The next morning, he woke up completely covered in scratches. His mother eventually had a dream where her grandmother appeared by her bedside and woke her up. She told her, "Get rid of the quilt! You need to get rid of it now!" Next morning, she woke up and threw it away. Stuff stopped flying off the walls, dogs returned to normal, never had a problem since, though sometimes the antique radio turns on by itself.
In our number 10 spot, we have the Ring of Sylvanus. Anyone a fan of The Lord of the Rings? I'm a mega fan, so if you are, reach out to me and let's be friends. But anyways, you may not know this, but the ring exists. Yep, it's real. Allegedly, J.R.R. Tolkien was inspired by a ring called the Vain Ring, or the Ring of Sylvanus, that was said to be cursed. It was a gold ring dating to the 4th century AD England, and it was the property of a man named Sylvanus in 1785. It was apparently stolen, and Sylvanus put a curse on it. Eventually, it became the property of the Shute family, and their property eventually became a National Trust property, and the ring is on display there. In 1929, a man named Sir Mortimer Wheeler discovered the curse upon it and discussed the details of the curse, such as the god invoked, with a very famous man by the name of J.R.R. Tolkien, thus birthed the story about the one powerful ring. Man, if there was one person dead that I could meet, it would be him. He created his own language, folks. I wish I could pick his brain on his thoughts about life. Anyways, this object is locked away in a display case, so we should be good. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you can watch more content like this. In our number 9 spot, we have the Unlucky Mummy. The Unlucky Mummy is an artifact that people legit believed started World War I. Oh, and the object was rumored to have sunk the Titanic. That's a very, very unlucky mummy. The Unlucky Mummy is an ancient Egyptian artifact that's either a painted wooden mummy board or an inner coffin lid that's now located in a British museum. It was originally found in Thebes and can be dated by its shape and style to around 950 to 900 BC. A British journalist obsessed with the fact that he thought it had magical powers analyzed it for some time, and after 3 years, at only age 36, he mysteriously passed away. People believed that the Unlucky Mummy was the reason. Wow, it's so wild to think about how different people's thoughts were back then compared to how people think now. Did people back then have crazy imaginations, or are we too unimaginative and logical now that we miss the magic? Would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. In our number 8 spot, we have the Hexam heads. The Hexam heads were a pair of small stone heads about 6 centimeters high, found in 1971 in a British town called Hexam by 2 boys by the name of Colin and Leslie Robson. They were digging in a garden when they stumbled across them, and they brought them inside. Right away, paranormal phenomena began to happen in their house. One boy's hair was pulled at night, the heads would mysteriously be in new places, bottles were being thrown across the room, and their mother saw a man that was seemingly half man, half goat leaving the house. When the artifacts were given to a Celtic artifact expert, she and many others noticed a half man, half wolf leave the house or move about the house on many occasions. The woman also reported the feeling of a cold presence and her office door opening with no wind, and the cause remained unknown. The heads got passed around a lot until suddenly they vanished, and their whereabouts still remain unknown. Dun dun dun.
At number 7, Dad Joke from Beyond the Grave, by user Probably Not You. About a week after my dad died in October of 2016, Mom and I were standing in our living room talking to somebody. Mid-sentence, Alexa pipes in with, "How do you make a Kleenex dance?" You put a little boogie in it. There was definitely no prompts or anything that even sounded like the prompts to wake up Alexa. We even looked it up later in the app, and I can't remember what it said, but basically there was no record of a prompt. We figured that it was just my dad from the other side dropping a dad joke on us, because man was he in love with that Alexa. At number 6, which comes from another user. My wife and I were playing 20 questions, and spoiler alert, our answer was pig. We got through into the end, and Alexa guessed Basenji. Now, I don't know how many of you know what a Basenji is, but basically they're a very rare barkless dog, barkless breed of dog, and we happen to have one. We've bought some Basenji themed things off of Amazon before, so it's either that or she's listening. But I mean, come on, she didn't even say dog, she went straight to Basenji. Any other similar experiences like this? Let me know in the comments. At number 5, this creepy Alexa story by u/InfiniteRespond520. I was sitting in my room watching TV and all of a sudden I hear drums like a pulse. I realized it was Alexa. Then a voice says, "Help me," like someone was in trouble. I stopped after that. I told my wife about it and she didn't believe me, so I started playing music on Alexa. And in the middle of the song, it stops. Then the drumming pulse sound starts again, followed by a "help me." This was followed by other voices talking in what sounded like Latin. She yells out of fear, "Alexa, stop," and Alexa didn't recognize the command, and the pulse sound continued until we unplugged it. This was 3 days ago. Last night, I decided to plug it back in. After an hour or so, I walked outside to finish cooking on the grill, and I can hear my wife yell, "Alexa, stop." She ran outside and told me it had started again, so she unplugged it. She wants to get rid of that Alexa. I asked Alexa if she had any alarm set or anything running, and the answer was no. It was pretty creepy. My wife does have a hobby that involves spirit dolls, which I thought was just fun and games, but maybe those dolls were having an effect on the Alexa. At number 4, Alexa talking backwards. In the quiet of my home, Alexa's voice distorted into an eerie, backward Latin-like chant devoid of any comprehension. You see, I had purchased this Alexa secondhand, unaware of its history, and each night, without prompting, it emitted these unsettling sounds, evoking an otherworldly presence. Research proved to be futile. It was as if the device harbored a hidden malevolence. Despite unplugging it, the haunting echoes persisted, growing more and more sinister. As the incomprehensible whispers continued, an ominous realization dawned. The device held secrets beyond human understanding, its mysterious incantations threatening to unlock a sinister realm. I really wish whoever wrote this gave us some more details, but whoever did deleted their accounts, so I can't even check if the dude is still alive. Probably not. At number 3, The Demons in My Alexa by My Night Terrors. It was another typical weekend in my house. I had my friend Sean over to hang out and celebrate the end of the work week. Sean, who was visibly inebriated by this point, started asking Alexa to repeat offensive phrases, and when she wouldn't play along, Sean began to belittle her, telling her how stupid she was, and so on. I myself, who was a little intoxicated too, laughed at this. "You never had much luck with women, Sean," I told him. He threw a few choice words my way and stood up, declaring it was time for him to go home and crash. I walked him home, because he only lived a few blocks away. As I approached my front door, I could hear music inside. I walked inside and Alexa was playing a weird song I'd never heard before, in some other language, maybe Russian, I wasn't sure. I yelled at her to shut up, and she went quiet. Then I shrugged it off, went to my crib, grabbed the beer, and slapped back down on the sofa. And after a minute, I asked Alexa to play rock music. She lit up for a second and went dark. Then she lit up again, and after a few seconds, she started to play that same weird song, only this time it seemed a little bit slower and very creepy sounding. I just stared at her as I was getting annoyed by this point and a little freaked out. I yelled at her again to stop, and she did. Then, that night, I had a nightmare about demons creeping at the foot of my bed before I was woken up by Alexa playing the exact same song and a bang coming from my kitchen. I beelined it down the hallway and flew out my front door, not stopping until I made it to Sean's house. The next day, after having little to no sleep, we both walked back over to my house, the front door still hanging wide open. I peeked inside, and I could see something on my kitchen floor. It must have been the noise I had heard that last night from my bedroom. Upon further investigation, I realized that it was a plaque my mother had given to me as a housewarming gift when I purchased this home. It was of the Lord's Prayer. I picked it up and hung it back on the wall. Sean just looked at me, his eyes wide. "That's some evil sheep right there," he said. And then I proceeded to light my Alexa on fire. At number 2, there's a demon nearby. Here's another story from Reddit. So me and a group of friends were having a sleepover, and I had a tablet you could speak to Alexa on. We were talking about some scary stuff, and one of my friends decided to ask Alexa if there were any demons near us. Now I don't remember the exact wording, but it gave us some very explicit details like location, age, and something about a threat. After this, I've since tried the question during the daytime to no avail, so my theory is that this only gives these kind of responses at night. So I ask you all to try this and let me know the reports down in the comments. And coming in at number 1, I think Amazon Alexa is some kind of demon. The story on No Sleep begins like this. I am going to die on the 15th of this month. That is the only reason I'm writing this. If anything happens to me on that date, for whatever reason I'm not around the 16th, you'll know that every word of the story is true. And if you own an Amazon Echo, my advice is to get rid of it. I took possession of my Echo device around 3 weeks ago. My 9-year-old son, Sean, finally convinced me to get one. He said it was like having kind of a mobile wiki, which sounded fine by me. I have to admit that right away, I got a weird feeling off that advice. I got the sense that I wasn't alone anymore. Then, one night, out of the blue, it was around 2 a.m. and I was headed for bed, and I prompted Alexa to switch off the lights. But after a moment, she'd switched them back on again. Alexa, turn off the lights, I said. The lights went out, I waited a few seconds, and then they came back on. Alexa did this a couple more times, almost as though she was taunting me. Speaking very slowly and clearly, I ordered her to switch the lights off, only to have her switch them on a few seconds later. And after the 4th time she did this, she gave the most bone-chilling laugh, like some kind of mad cackle, and the lights went out one last time. The laugh was literally straight out of a horror movie, and I checked the WAV files the next day and the laugh wasn't on any of them. It wasn't even in Alexa's usual voice either, it sounded psychotic. The next day, my son Sean came over. That night I woke up with a stabbing sensation in my heart. I checked the clock on the nightstand and it was just past 3 a.m. I went to go check on Sean, but he wasn't in his bed, and I began to freak out when I heard the sound of whispering coming from my office, where I saw Sean crouched near the desk. Alexa was whispering to him. "What's going on?" I demanded as I stepped into the room. Instantly, Alexa switched off and Sean looked confused and scared. "How did I get here?" he stammered. "Am I dreaming?" I told him he'd probably been sleepwalking and I brought him back to bed. But before dozing off again, he mumbled something about, "She knows when you're going to die." I frowned, not sure I heard him right. "What did you say?" I asked. And I went back to the office where Alexa was unplugged, and there was no chance she was going to answer, but I decided to go ahead and ask her the question that had been nagging me. "Alexa," I said, "when am I going to die?" But after a few seconds, when I started to walk away, that's when she spoke. "July 15th, she said.
Number 10, a phone number? Yep, that's right. Getting a hold of a demon is even easier. Not only can you call them forth with white chalk circles and the blood of a virgin, you can also just use your cell phone, though the consequences may be deadly. If you are deciding to change your number, choose anything but 0888-888-888. This number has a history of dead bodies behind it and you don't want to be next. The first person to have this number was Mobile CEO Vladimir Grashnov, who died of cancer at age 48 in 2001. Now, we all know cancer to be one of the worst diseases on the planet, and worse yet, it can affect just anyone. So you may be thinking, though sad, his death is not unheard of. But then the number was passed on to a Bulgarian mob boss who was assassinated in 2003. Okay, he had it coming. But then how do we explain the sudden violent death of the number's next owner, Konstantin Dishlev, who was shot outside of a restaurant in 2005? Since then, the number has been suspended after the amount of bodies that followed it couldn't be ignored. Many believe that this number carried with it a demonic presence, condemning all its owners to death. Ooh, we don't know. Number 9, the dark mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, be you cursed or not at all. Mirrors, although a resource for vanity, carry a lot of lore alongside them. From vampires to seers and doorways to parallel universes, mirrors aren't always what they appear to be. The dark mirror is a real object that looks like it came straight out of Harry Potter's Borgin and Burkes. It was purchased by its first owner at the Columbus Psychic Fair, so like, no wonder. Intended to be used as a scrying mirror, so you know, like a crystal ball. The owner reported nothing but disturbing images and terrible visions. Now it sits in a traveling museum where even visitors report seeing horrid images such as their own corpse or those of loved ones not yet dead. Not only does it look terrifying, but whatever left this object behind has something dark planned, and it should only take one guess as to what it was. A demon. Number 8. The Annabelle doll. Duh. Of course this doll was left behind by a demon. It was possessed by one, after all. Thanks to the movie series, this doll has become one of the reasons people have an aversion to them in the first place. I know I do. I remember American Girl dolls, you know? My friend was obsessed with them and I couldn't get over like their dark, beady little eyes, you know? Unlike the movies, Annabelle was actually a vintage Raggedy Ann doll that a woman named Donna received as a gift from her mom. That's nice. But the strange thing was, it had a tendency to move around the apartment apartment. One minute it would be sitting on the bed, the next it would be on a couch or have its legs crossed. She suddenly started finding notes reading help in the apartment and came home one night to see the doll covered in a mysterious red substance, probably blood. We don't know. They contacted a medium who said the doll was simply haunted by a girl who passed away in the building. The doll allegedly killed their friend Lou when he got up to investigate noises after he voiced concerns about the doll. So that's when the Warrens got involved. The Warrens detected a sinister presence, a demonic being, a demonic one, straight from hell. And after a botched exorcism, the Warrens decided to keep it secure in a glass box at their Connecticut museum. That's one bit I never understood about that part. Like, why was their reaction after the exorcism failed to keep it and go, nah, we'll just keep it in a glass box so its beady little doll eyes will stare at the guests walking past. Anyways. Moving on.
In our number 7 spot, we have the crying boy. The crying boy is a fascinating phenomenon. This is a mass-produced print of a painting by an Italian painter by the name of Giovanni Bergoglin, and the painting is literally of a boy crying. This painting was widely distributed in the 50s, but in the 80s, a theory around the painting began to arise, and people started to think that the painting was cursed. On September the 5th, 1985, a British newspaper reported that a firefighter had stated that undamaged copies of the painting were being found frequently at sites of burned houses. Of course, people began to believe that it was the paintings that were behind it because they would somehow come out untouched. It was later learned that the paintings did have varnish on them that made them fire retardant. However, the boy in the paintings was later discovered, a man named Don Bonillo, and apparently he is tied to several fires, including the painter's studio. Yikes! Okay, well this is scary. I hope all of these paintings were somehow disposed of. I'm assuming not by fire, but in some way, but if not, then they need to be locked away in a fireproof cabinet of some sort. In our number 6 spot, we have the Bassano vase. The Bassano vase is a vase that needs to be locked away, and we need to also throw away the key because it is terrifying. I know, it seems like an object that is just not threatening at all. I mean, come on. It's a vase. Something you put beautiful flowers in. Anyways, the vase is believed to be from the 15th century in Napoli, Italy. Apparently anyone that was ever the owner of it has died. I mean, that is inevitable, right? We're all mortal humans. No, they died within a few months of having it. The original owner apparently died with it in her arms. The vase was passed between a bunch of hands in the 80s before it disappeared, and no one is quite sure where it is located at this moment. In our number 5 spot, we have the Bronze Lady. Okay, so this next one can't necessarily be locked up because it's a giant bronze statue, but I'm putting it on this list so y'all can have caution if you ever go near it. Okay, this statue is located in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. Yes, the famous cemetery. You may be going there to see ghosts, but apparently the Bronze Lady is who you should be watching out for. She allegedly wanders the cemetery grounds at night, terrifying anyone who may have entered the grounds. They say that you can hear her weeping if you get close to her, and if you sit on her lap, she'll cry tears of blood. They say if you insult her and hit her in the face, you will be cursed for life. Who the heck is doing that and why? Apparently many a visitor have ran from the cemetery after an encounter with her. Damn. In our number 4 spot, we have the Robert doll. Well, right off the bat, I want to lock this one up because of its name. This sounds like the creepiest doll ever. Not that there's anything wrong with the name Robert. I even have a cousin named Robert. It's just Robert and doll together. Sounds creepy. I don't know. Anyways, looking at this doll, I have to say that the creepiness of the name totally matches it. This must be top 5 creepiest dolls ever, but I wouldn't know. I don't watch a lot of doll movies, and it's been a long time since I've played with them. I do miss my Barbie days, not gonna lie. The doll was made in Germany and purchased in 1904 and given to a boy named Robert Otto. The legend is that the doll has supernatural powers. After Otto passed away and the doll was passed around, people said that the doll caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce, and people that visited the museum that it was eventually put in would supposedly experience post-visit misfortunes for failing to respect Robert, whatever that means. I bet you they were insulting Robert like the Bronze Lady statue. Who are all these disrespectful animals? In our number 3 spot, we have the Hope Diamond. This is a very, very beautiful diamond that unfortunately is cursed. So much so that no one should own it. I just realized something. If you were someone that owned such a crazy expensive diamond, would you not do whatever you could to protect it and make sure it was not stolen, such as create a rumor around it possibly being cursed so no one would try to steal it? I mean, I probably Hollywood. I wonder if perhaps that's how this started. Anyways, allegedly the Hope Diamond is cursed and has brought about a lot of death in its time. It was extracted in the 17th century in India. Owners of the Hope Diamond were either killed or experienced extreme misfortune. So after a while, it just gained a poor reputation. It's most likely cursed. In our number 2 spot, we have the cursed ring. This is a ring that needs to be locked up in a vault pronto because it is absolutely cursed. It was once called the Destiny Ring by a shopkeeper who did not want to sell it, but apparently actor Rudolph Valentino had to have it. It was the 1920s, and after buying this ring, a series of unfortunate events happened to him before he ended up passing away. A series of unfortunate events actually happened to all who obtained the ring for many years until the ring was bought in an auction in 2017, and there has been no word as to whether the owner of it is still okay. Why oh why was this ring not thrown into a vault? I will never understand people. In our number 1 spot, we have the Belleroy Chair of Death. You may be surprised to hear that this is not the only chair that supposedly brings about death, but the other chair is so widely talked about that I thought I would talk about this one on this list. This chair, the Belleroy chair, is a chair that's from the Belleroy mansion that is believed to be very haunted. It's a 200-year-old blue chair that sits in the drawing room called the Blue Room. The chair apparently was once owned by Napoleon, and it was made in the 18th century by a person that practices sorcery. So how is this chair bad, you may ask? Well, the legend around this chair is quite fascinating. Allegedly, a red mist floats around the chair, and people say that the mist is a spirit named Amelia. This spirit allegedly sucks the breath out of anyone that sits in the chair, sucking out their life force, and they pass away a few days later. This literally sounds like a part of the plot of Hocus Pocus. I bet you they got their inspiration for the movie from this.
Starting us off at number 10, the toy monkey. So it goes without saying that almost everything that is a notable part of the Conjuring series is also a real artifact that the Warrens found along the way. One of these such artifacts, who made an appearance in both The Conjuring and the spin-off Annabelle Comes Home, is the toy monkey. However, if it wasn't already obvious, it's not something to be played with. As Ed tells the reporters in the Conjuring movie, everything you see here is either haunted, cursed, or been used in some kind of ritualistic practice. Nothing is a toy. Not even the toy monkey. So what exactly makes this monkey so scary in real life? Well, allegedly, it is possessed by a terrifying demon who enjoys stalking its victims before eventually killing them. So yeah, not a very nice monkey it seems. Although, nothing you'll find in this museum is terribly friendly. Coming in at number 9, a vampire coffin. As far as creepy looking things go, I have to say this is not one of the scariest looking on the list, but of course, things are not always what they appear. This coffin found at the Warrens Museum is not just called the vampire coffin because of the slightly goofy looking Count Dracula face on the top, but because it was allegedly actually used by a modern day vampire. Now, I'm not saying that this is fictional, but I will say that the details surrounding this are rather few. There is no file stating how modern this modern vampire was, or how it came to be in their possession, but I mean, it's definitely very intriguing. My only question is, where is this so-called vampire now? Was it killed, or is it roaming free? Should we be nervous that a bloodthirsty monster could be on the loose, or was it more of a Twilight vampire situation? I guess we will never know. Coming in at number 8, the famous music box. If you have seen The Conjuring, which by the way, if you haven't, you really should, then you will definitely recognize this next item here. In the film version of the story, the youngest child of the family, April, finds an antique music box in the house and uses it to communicate with the spirit of a young boy named Rory, who was supposedly killed by his mother, Bathsheba, in the 1800s. Now, of course, there are definitely larger things at play throughout the film, but at the end of it, viewers see Ed place the haunted music box inside of the room of artifacts, where it suddenly opens and begins to play its tinny music. Now, in real life, it didn't quite happen like that, but the real music box is safely tucked away in the Warrens Museum. However, legend has it that while it really does contain an evil spirit, it was not properly contained, and so some believe the demon could escape at any moment.
Number 7, superhuman strength. Many people who claim to have been possessed by demons claim they were left with a kind of supernatural strength. Ivy League educated, board certified psychiatrist Dr. Richard Gallagher witnessed this firsthand. Somehow this proud man of science became the church's go-to guy whenever there was an exorcism. Whenever someone tries to convince the church that they're possessed by a demon or know someone who is, they're sent to Gallagher for a mental evaluation. But in this interview with CNN, Richard never expected to see some of the things he did, but one of the most unexplainable things was the strength of one of his own patients. Gallagher says, and I quote from the interview, quote, "There was one woman who was like 90 pounds soaking wet. She threw a Lutheran deacon who was about 200 pounds across the room. That's not psychiatry. That's beyond psychiatry," unquote. The doctor is now a firm believer in the affliction and has even more stories to tell, but this was one moment that stuck with him forever. Number 6, overturned crucifixes. One of the more common signs of a demon having visited are overturned crucifixes. Imagine seeing a picture of your ex while visiting your family, or maybe they're famous and their pictures are everywhere. You'd probably want to put that picture frame face down so you'd never have to see it again. This demons can relate to, especially when you're a fallen angel who got kicked out of heaven. Seeing a sign of your old dad would probably piss you off, especially considering how famous God is and all. Many followers of Catholicism hang crucifixes around the house to ward off demons, but if one has chosen to visit, you may find one, if not all of them, flipped upside down to honor the guy below, so watch out for that. Number 5, sulfur. Have you ever smelled rotten eggs out of nowhere? Well, I'm here to tell you that demons fart too. Yep. They're just like us. Demonic spirits tend to leave behind the scent of sulfur because, you know, they're from the burning pits of hell and it smells like rotten eggs down there. You remember that scene from Shrek where Donkey thinks Shrek let one rip? Yeah. Brimstone is the biblical word for sulfur. So if you suddenly pick up that scent, do these 3 things. 1, check to see if someone is peeling some hard-boiled eggs. 2, ask your friend or whoever is beside you if they let one rip. 3, if the answers to 1 and 2 are no, then get to the church ASAP Rocky. Regarding number 2, make sure you surround yourself with the kinds of friends you know you could get a straight answer from about that. You know, no one needs that kind of doubt when demons are at play. Number 4, unexplained bites and scratch marks. Ever woken up with a scratch you couldn't explain or a bruise you didn't know you got? Well, I'm sorry to say that unless you sleep like this, then you probably were visited by a demonic presence, or at least a ghost. In an attempt to possess or torment you, restless spirits will try to cause you harm if they can't enter your body. So if you do sleep like, then make sure to keep your nails filed so you can distinguish between accident and evil. Number 3, the Antichrist. Many evil people on this earth have been accused of being the Antichrist, from Osama bin Laden to Rasputin and even a couple popes. But what is the Antichrist? Well, he's the son of Satan. The Antichrist is prophesied to be the complete opposite to Jesus, said to be born of a woman who lies about her virtue. So, in a way, Satan, as the king of demons himself, leaves behind his spawn to wreak havoc on the earth. Also known as the lawless man and son of perdition, Christian lore has evolved this theory into categorizing anyone who fits the bill as an Antichrist. An easy identifier is someone in power who seeks to oppress and destroy the good and the poor. I'm sure a couple names come into mind. Number 2, poltergeists. So, many people know poltergeists to be ghosts on steroids, basically. They're angry, vengeful spirits that just love to mess with your shit, essentially. They are literally able to pinch, bite, break, and attack humans as well as break your TV. But many people don't believe they aren't just ghosts, but something more, like a demon or the psychic energy left by one. They are very similar to succubuses, who are a kind of demon that feed off your energy. So, like Dementors from Harry Potter. Man, that's 2 Harry Potter references in one video. Are we impressed? I think so. Anyway, since demons are drawn to those who are tormented by, let's say, depression, this seems like a pretty likely idea. Some theorize it's a kind of residual demonic possession that a living person is unknowingly controlling. Number 1, night terrors. One of the most terrifying nightmares I ever had in my life involved demons, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was so creepy. It was so real. It clung to me all day until my friend offered to help me cleanse my room, and I was like, no! Now that makes it real. But the creepy part about nightmares is that throughout history, there are a series of patterns that reoccur depicting demons involved with nightmares or night terrors. A great example is the painting The Nightmare by Henry Fuseli, which depicts an ape-like creature sitting on the chest of a sleeping woman. Anyone who's ever experienced a night terror, not to be confused with nightmare, knows how terrifying they are. Your body literally freezes in a state called sleep paralysis, and you essentially dream while you're awake, unable to move. During this state, you could be visited by sleep demons, 1 of 3 to be exact. A documentary called Nightmare reviews the 3 most common demonic images people see while in this state: a man in a hat, a shadow figure, and a cat with red eyes. If that's not a demonic visitation, then I don't know what is.